righty. You gonna get that plugged in? I'm ready when you are. Okay, I love that. All right, if I could have your attention. I think we have the video going. We want to make sure that everyone that's not able to be here with us can participate in a different way. So we are so excited to have you here. It is hard to believe we are now at December 11th, our final meeting. The time has gone very, very quickly. I want to thank the team for ensuring that we were able to add the final meeting because we felt like it was important to pull everybody together one more time because we've had a lot of great work done, a lot of participation, not just from you, from the staff, from the community. So as we bring this to a close, wanted to first of all thank everyone for your participation and your engagement. I know many of you have other places you could be and things you might need to do right before the holidays, but we appreciate the fact that you are here with us. I want to review 3 very important goals that we set out during the district zone reset process. Okay, as a reminder, the first one was to allow our community ample opportunity to be involved and to give us feedback in order to provide the foundation for the work that you have been a big part of. The second goal was to provide transparency throughout the process on our website, the DZR, District Zone Reset website, with also frequent email communications and, of course, the video recordings that we know many people have been able to view and share and talk about. And then give us more feedback. And the third goal is to create new attendance boundaries that promote the best interest of all district students. And know that, I've said this before, it does not matter what school our children go to, they will go to an amazing school in an amazing district. And so I want to leave you with, and I'll come back at the very end of this meeting today, thanking you, all of you here, but also thank you to everybody watching. Thank you to the Tomball community for the time that they have given and their active participation in providing us feedback throughout the entire district zone reset. And no, you have my comments all right there. I could have just looked that way. But I want to thank you again. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. This doesn't happen too often in a district, in a fast growth district. Of course, it does happen with a little more frequency. I did mention at the last meeting, the history goes way back when, of course, we started as one high school and there were people who thought we would never need another one. And here we are opening up our 3rd comprehensive high school and all the other schools that we are building or have built and need to fill. Thank you again. And I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Amy Schindewolf, our Chief of Staff.
Okay, good afternoon. I want to take just a few minutes to review where we've been and where we're going before Dr. G comes up to discuss where we are with our map. So as a review, we go back, and the green check mark is always a good thing when we can say we have finished that in the process. And so when we go back to October 10th, we had the district zone reset report to the school board where we basically just laid out the process. And then we opened that initial thought exchange where we could get community feedback. And where we were at that point was just asking, what should we consider when moving forward with the reset? And we had, as a review, 1,181 participants in that thought exchange, 878 thoughts, and 30,090 ratings on those thoughts. And so that was a good amount of participation. And if you recall, we had those priorities that came out of the things that we should consider. And we've discussed those, and we'll go into more detail. But remember, that's where you've seen the word map, where we looked at things like proximity, being close to home, safety, things like that as we move forward. We did have our first committee meeting, and that was at the Tomball Event Center with 44 members. And then at that meeting, you were broken up, and you looked at not every map, you looked at level, and you gave feedback on either the elementary, the intermediate, the junior high, or the high school levels. And then we posted maps online related to that committee material for Plan 1 and 2 on the website. with a parent survey, and we had 829 responses. And from those responses and the committee work and the thought exchange, Plan 3 was put out. And that was before the listening tour. On November 8th, that seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't too long ago, we had our listening tour stop one at Tomball Memorial, where we had 23 registered speakers and about 160 in attendance from what we could count. And we took notes and we recorded that and reviewed everything that was said by our speakers that we should take into consideration. Then a week later, we went to Tomball High School for stop 2. We had a few more speakers that night, up to 55 speakers with 120 in attendance. And based on feedback from the parent comments, Plan 4 was created and released prior to your committee number 2. The survey number 2 opened for parents on November 17th prior to Thanksgiving. We kept that open through December 1st. We had more responses to that survey than the first one. So we think that it's a positive that not only have people stayed engaged, but our engagement level has actually gone up throughout the process, which is a positive. So we had 982 responses. And here you can see, again, we reviewed this last time, how many people, although we weren't saying you need to vote to pick what is your preference. And so Plan 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can read those percentages there. And then there was an option for no preference or undecided, and 14% did say that. And then last week on December 4th, we came back for committee number 2, and that was here. And then we approach that work a little bit differently than we did the first time. Instead of looking at levels, you as a group looked at all plan series, map series 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And then from that meeting, based on comments there and administration going back and reviewing everything, Plan 1 and 2 were eliminated from consideration at that point. So as we left this meeting, we were going to consider Plan 3 and 4. We are here today, no check mark, so it's not complete, December 11th, and we are going to ask you to provide final advisement today on maps in preparation for the recommended plan based on feedback that was given through everything that I just talked about and the feedback given from you, questions posed, things that you said, can you consider this? Can we look at option 4 and consider this? Can we look at 3 and maybe consider this? We've taken all of that to come together today for you to review and provide final advisement. On January 8th, which is right when we come back from the holidays, we will have a school board meeting on that Monday, and it is our plan to give them a report at that Monday night school board workshop meeting to review the process and to propose new attendance boundaries. And then on January 9th at the regular school board meeting is when voting occurs, and we will ask the school board to approve a new attendance boundary. So as you can see going through that, and I know that's a lot, and I know that we review that each meeting when we come our process, but we want to really ensure you that plans have been created and adjusted based on feedback from the community and this committee. When we took what do you want us to consider the thought exchange district-wide, and then people coming and to the listening tours, the surveys, and the committee work, and working with our demographer to take into consideration all of that, I can guarantee you that the plan that we are going to show you today based on that feedback was not something that we knew when we started this. It was not something that was already done, not a canned map. It was definitely something that was built in a collaborative process, and we're proud of that transparent, collaborative process that we've had through this. And so in making preparations for this meeting, your comments really help shape our work. We took a lot of time to consider, to work in a small group and a larger group, to work with that demographer over the last week, to really say, are these things that we can consider long-term in the district? Because remember, staying in those guideposts, we don't want to say, okay, we're doing this, but that didn't work, so 2 years later we have to come back and redo this again. We're really looking long-term based on the data that we have to ensure that we're doing what's best for the entire district. And so with plans 3 and 4 remaining, it's important to remember that our community and their preference and alignment with our rezoning guideposts, like I was talking about. And so the plan that you're seeing today is derived from this. If you go back and recall, there was a plan 3, and then plan 4 wasn't drastically different. It was really an extension of plan 3 based on that feedback. Proximity, safety, travel time, and neighborhood unity are the consistent themes shared regardless of the avenue for feedback. Whether it was the thought exchange, whether it was the survey, whether it was the committee's feedback, the listening tours, we consistently heard comments that revolved around these things. And so when we looked there and we did that final survey, Plan 4 was preferred by the largest percentage. And so 49% of the people that responded did say Plan 4, and that doesn't mean that they think it's perfect. That's not that they think, oh, Plan 4 answers everything. It means of the options that are presented at the time, the largest percentage of respondents felt like Plan 4 got the closest to what we were trying to do district-wide, knowing that there's a pain point. There's always a pain point when you're looking at 23,000 students in such a large area with 23 going up to 27 schools. There's going to be a pain point somewhere in the process, but most people felt like Plan 4 got the closest to getting where we needed to be. So that percentage really signified to us that the community felt like, okay, we're getting closer. And so today, you're going to see some final refinements that we've made based on your feedback from last time, and that is going to be a revision of Plan 4. So it's just some tweaks to Plan 4 like we talked about last time, and we really want to show that to you today and get your feedback, which is what the majority of the time today will be doing.
Thank you, Dr. Schindewolf. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Based on what Dr. Schindewolf just mentioned, I'm going to walk through a series of changes that really were driven by the comments that you all wrote in your Google Doc last week that we've received from the parents, follow-up emails that we've also received throughout the process. And so, as Dr. Schindewolf mentioned, we're using Plan 4 as the basis for these changes, considering, again, the majority of the district felt like that was a good place to continue and then using your feedback and community feedback. So you will get individual maps and forecasts here in a second when we do group work. I'm basically going to run through the key changes that we made on this plan before we kind of ask you to provide us further feedback on this. So on the elementary plan, we had several communities here in the Rosewood Hill, Rosehurst, and Timberlake neighborhood that express interest in remaining at Rose Hill. And so actually, so you see the square here, those are the 3 neighborhoods that I mentioned. And so that's Plan 4. Plan 4 revised would include these neighborhoods at Rose Hill. One interesting note, a couple of things, you get a clean boundary line that everything north of 2920 would remain at Rose Hill. This is also the current Rose Hill, part of the current Rose Hill zone. So that would also eliminate an issue of having students move multiple times. And so as Dr. Schindewolf mentioned, there are some pain points. And so you may ask, like, why didn't you do that to begin with? Well, part of this neighborhood was put into Grand Oaks because as we split the Grand Oaks zone with West, we had to populate that to ensure that there was enough students, sufficient capacity utilization between both campuses. And so these neighborhoods were shifted from Rose Hill to Grand Oaks initially. So if we were going to be moving a significant population of students into Rose Hill, that would lead you to believe that that neighborhood, that campus would exceed capacity, and it did. And so we couldn't just move these move these students to Rose Hill without actually making an adjustment to the Rose Hill zone and to the Grand Oaks zone, because Grand Oaks also, since we pulled students off of that zone, we needed to increase some of the capacity that these students were taking up at at Grand Oaks. So just trying to explain some of the changes and the rationale of what we did. So again, there was an expressed desire to keep these 3 neighborhoods at Rose Hill, and so you see that here in Plan 4 revised. This little oval shape here, initially in Plan 4 was going to go to west. That is the northern portion of Amira in the southwest part of our district. We did receive some feedback and some emails in our communication throughout the process to say, although we're one neighborhood, this is a very large neighborhood, half of it really hasn't even been fully built out. They're still building and doing dirt work there. You see this little red line, curved line, that is a major road there passing through, although it's in the neighborhood. That's Holderreath Road there in that neighborhood, and it in some ways separates the northern and southern part of the district. And so there were some emails and concerns from parents to say, although we're one neighborhood, we're actually closer to Grand Oaks than to West. And so considering that one, neighborhood unity and proximity, sometimes those are factors that came up during all of our conversation from parents. Those are some of our guideposts. That's an example of when 2 guideposts or desires sort of are in conflict with each other. And so how do ultimately we decide, yes, we can go ahead and move forward with that? 2 reasons for having this group move from west to Grand Oaks. 1, it would allow additional capacity. There's only 16 students there right now, but that area is building, it's growing, and so we do know that's going to drive further growth, future growth for Grand Oaks. So 1, it captures utilization for Grand Oaks, and there was also a community desire questioning that although one neighborhood, that switching from one campus to another wasn't going to be detrimental to the families and the students. And so based on those factors, we did move the northern portion of Amira into Grand Oaks. And so this would be an elementary adjustment on Plan 4 from Rose Hill, Grand Oaks, and West Elementary. And you'll see what the forecast numbers look like that in a minute when you get to group work and you have your own handout. All right, so again, mentioning at Rose Hill, we included the 3 neighborhoods here into Rose Hill that still, even with this change, this change in northern part of Amir did not affect Rose Hill, so we still needed some enrollment relief because it did bring Rose Hill over capacity sooner than we would like it to. And so we had to pull students out of Rose Hill, and so I want to go to the northern part of the Rose Hill zone, the northern part that butts up to Decker Prairie. So you see the square here. This is Bridle Creek and Sonoma Valley neighborhoods. And so there was, throughout the process, there was some questions or asking if it's possible to stay in the Decker Prairie zone. We've been at the Decker Prairie zone, and so we had always looked into see if that was a possibility, but without shifting other enrollment out of Rose Hill. That would have put too many students out of Rose Hill, and that would have also increased the capacity at Decker Prairie. And so with the shift from Rose Hill, we were able to take these neighborhoods out of Rose Hill and put them back into Decker Prairie where they currently go. So again, that also reduces the number of students having to change to be rezoned. And also we have the Spring Creek area, Spring Creek Apartments that we were moving from the Decker Prairie zone into Rose Hill. With the change, we were able to keep those students at the Decker Prairie zone. And so again, we have 2 areas that do provide relief to Rose Hill after including the neighborhoods in the far west part of the district. And so that did allow us, 1, to maintain more students in their current zone. And also, we talked about last meeting, Dr. Schindewolf mentioned there was a concern about the number of movement of two-way dual language students out of Rose Hill. And so that actually moving these neighborhoods here in the previous slide brings up back the number of families that are not part of the two-way dual language program. And so that did address a concern that we heard consistently from families in the Rose Hill zone. So we were able to address multiple concerns there. I do want to bring attention to this piece of land here, this part that is staying at the Rose Hill. This is the northern portion is Rose Hill Lake and Decker Farms. This is also a new subdivision. It is a growing subdivision. It's not even fully built out. I would say there's there's 11 students and 13 students. I believe there's over 100 homes that are in that area, and so they're still continuing to build. We looked at the idea, the prospect of moving this entire neighborhood, keeping it in Decker Prairie. We have received some concerns from individuals who say, it's 4 minutes to Decker Prairie, it's 8 minutes to Rose Hill. We'd like to stay at Decker Prairie. Also some concern about the travel to the West Complex. Looking at travel lines, there is a very clean road, a clean way to get to West. This is Decker Prairie Rose Hill Road. Two lanes on both sides is a direct shot really to the Western Complex if you cut across also Jerkin. And so we did explore that despite having the clean lines of travel. We did explore moving that back into Rose Hill. Unfortunately, if we were to move these 3 neighborhoods back into the Decker Prairie zone, it does within 2 years bring Decker Prairie up over capacity. And by only moving these 2 neighborhoods back in, you'll see this in the forecast. It's not until 2030 that Decker Prairie exceeds capacity. So you look at a difference of 4 or 5 years of capacity is what we were looking at in the determining factor of keeping this neighborhood, these 2 neighborhoods at Rose Hill. So this would affect our Rose Hill and Decker Prairie zones. And then one of the things that I mentioned in the last meeting is we kind of started with the high school and then backwards aligned to the junior high, the intermediate, and the elementary. So understanding that we were making this change impacting elementary, we also made the switch, you'll see on the maps throughout, that these 2 areas go to Tomball Intermediate, Tomball Junior, and Tomball High School. In the previous series, they were going to West Intermediate, Grand Lakes, and Tomball West High School. And so these places that we moved, these 2 areas here, would be aligned with everyone else that's going that direction in an effort to maintain somewhat clean feeder pattern lines. Okay, let's move far down south near the Wildwood zone. In the previous Plan 4, this is the original Oak Crest at Wildwood, I believe here, and we received several concerns, asked questions asking if it's possible for them to stay with the rest of the neighborhoods here, Hayden Lakes, Wildwood at Oak Crest, and Oak Crest. Again, this is another one of those times where there's some conflict between principals or some of the concerns of proximity versus neighborhood unity, the social group of having friends that you've always been to school with. So the concern here, there are 25 and 60 students that would have been moving from, that would have previously been with this group of friends. These guys go to Grand Oaks currently. And so there was expressed concern that if the folks in these large neighborhoods that I mentioned are heading to West Elementary, although it is closer to Wildwood, they would prefer to stay with their friend group despite the proximity. And so we did receive several concerns independent of this committee asking to remain with the larger majority of the students. And so we explored what that would look like in an effort to provide the community what they're asking. We explored moving them to West. And so we were able to move them to West. There is sufficient capacity at West Elementary. That did leave, that's about 85 students. That's an 85 student hole at Wildwood that we felt like, ooh, if we move these students, we are probably underutilizing Wildwood Elementary. And so what we looked at, there's neighborhood here in the Oval. This is the Enclave and the Lakes at North Point. We were initially moving them from Plan 3 to Plan 4, so one of the changes there, to Willow Creek. This would have kept them at Tomball Memorial, but sort of a concession there was folks in those 2 neighborhoods were going to be going to Willow Creek. And so with the freed up space here of these neighborhoods going to West Elementary, it did allow these students who already are going to Wildwood. So this is another instance of not having to move another group of students, and there is a significant number of students. There are 129, almost 180 students that go currently to West that we are moving to Willow Creek. So again, we have sufficient capacity at Wildwood, and we're able to include these families and not make another change for this group of students. And so, one second, ma'am. And so this did allow for this change, and so we were basically, in essence, swapping this group for these two neighborhoods. Now you're saying the math doesn't add up there. There's about 100 student difference. You will see in Wildwood there is sufficient capacity. That move does not take them above capacity, and it is comfortable within what their 920 student capacity. And so, yes, ma'am, I'm going to get you a microphone.
Just want to know what the yellow is.
The yellow here, that is West Elementary. So the question was, what is this yellow? That would be West Elementary. This is Wildwood, Willow Creek, Lakewood, Canyon Point. Okay, any questions? Because I'm going to make a shift to, I'm going to make a shift to secondary in a second. And so questions on the elementary changes. If you are going to ask a question, I'm going to get you a microphone. And for the sake of the camera, if you could also look in one of the directions so we can kind of see, see who you are in the camera. Any questions on the elementary changes? Excuse me.
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to know when Rose Hill reaches capacity under Plan 4 revised.
Great question. It will, do you have a copy back there? We'll take a look at that. I believe it's not until 27, 28, which would have been aligned where we already were, thank you, in Plan 4. Thank you. Any other questions? Excuse me. Thank you. All right. Here we go to Plan 4 revised, looking at a junior high and high school revision. There were several requests going even back to our listening tour. Right here, there's a 14. It's a one-way entrance. It's Enclave at Hayden Lakes. It spits out right here, very close to Oakcrest, right across the street from Oakcrest, very close to Memorial. There was a request due to the nature of coming in and out and the small number of students, if it was possible, to keep this neighborhood staying at Tomball Memorial. Granted, and you think, well, why would we make a concession for some and not for others? One, just the nature of the one-way entrance and one-way exit, the small number of students that would be impacting Tomball Memorial's utilization. We felt like if it works, we can include it in the plan. No slight to the large neighborhoods that asked to also remain at Tomball Memorial due to proximity. Just those numbers, as we looked at last time, would have brought Memorial up 200 up to 700 students over capacity. This is a very small number, looking at 14 and 2 students. And so we did move this enclave at Hayden Lakes and this little associated parcel of 2 students. Currently, there are no students in this area. This is a new division that's going in, like a 4 rent apartments. And so we do know that this will be increasing. That we'll have students here moving forward, but currently right now there are no students, and so we just wanted to include that with the 14 students that are coming, and those students will stay at Tomball Memorial. You're seeing a high school plan here, but we did adjust for alignment for feeder pattern purposes. These groups of students staying at Willowwood instead of Grand Lakes, and staying at Memorial instead of Tomball West. So those are the significant changes based on conversations that we had here and conversations that we had with parents on the phone or emails that were received, listening tour feedback. And so, but before I move on to the phases of when all these will take place, just as a review, I want to ensure there are no questions about what we've done so far based on the comments that we provided last week, and again, based on what we're hearing in the community. All right. I'm sure once we get in and you'll see the maps and the forecast, and if we can get that ready in the back, because we'll be moving forward with that here shortly. I want to revisit the implementation, the phase-in implementation. I do recognize some individuals think, because we've had recent conversations with some folks, that think all of this is happening next year. And so I do want to revisit our phase-in plan. This is on the website currently. And so just want to review that with everyone. So in 24-25, with the opening of West Elementary School, it would be impacting the following elementary schools. Basically, we'll cut to the chase there. That's all of the elementary schools minus the campuses in Creekside area. So the 3 elementary campuses there would not be impacted by that due to needing a relief school. That won't be coming until 26-27. And so all of the campuses here, basically the majority of the district minus the northeast part of the district will be changing. Significant note, there are no changes to intermediate, junior high, or high school in phase 1 that will take place next year. Any questions on phase 1 implementation beginning next year? All right. In 25-26, with the opening of West Intermediate School, that will impact the remaining intermediate campuses. So North Point, Oak Crest, and Tomball Intermediate School will be having their zones implemented. So all of the changes in Plan 4 revised that you will see shortly would take place in 25-26. I do have a little gold star. That was a reminder to me to bring this up with the group, because I definitely want your feedback, particularly as parents in the group. We have slated right now to make the changes to the junior high plan effective 25-26. There are no junior highs that are actually built in Bond 2021. And so we initially, when we rolled out the phases, had an idea that we could implement with the change to the intermediate campus, start aligning the junior highs with that plan. Considering really that no students would be impacted from moving, there's no junior high that's being built that would actually force a change in 25-26. We do have a possibility of delaying the junior high implementation by 1 year. Again, that doesn't change any of the enrollment, the capacities. There are no students changing junior highs to junior highs because of a new junior high. That would allow some students, again, 1 more year of remaining at that campus and then doing the full implementation for junior high in 26-27. I don't necessarily need an answer right now, but I would like, when we get to group work, for you to consider that. What is your thought process on allowing students at the junior high level 1 more year at their campus in order to, before phasing in this implementation of the junior high plan? And so right now it's currently scheduled for the 25-26 school year for implementation. We do have the possibility of changing that to the 26-27 year, but as parents, part of this committee in particular, would be interested in hearing your feedback. Yes, let me get you a microphone.
Since there's no changes happening with the junior highs, why put it off 2 years and not do it next year so that these kids can already start going in that track?
Good question. So everyone heard the question, why not start next year, right? And so as you consider in your group, that is one of the questions we're asking for some feedback on. If there is no real impact, why not make that change now? In essence, rip the Band-Aid off and start making the friendships and things like that. And so we can take a look at that and would certainly entertain any feedback that you have as parents on that group. Principals, certainly we appreciate your feedback as well. We want to also hear how this may impact families and parents out there. But with that, there is no change in the phase 2 implementation to elementary or high schools. All right, so moving down to the final implementation, in 26-27, we do have the elementary K-4 reconfiguration out in the northeast part of Tomball ISD, and so all of our Creekside campuses listed here, they are currently K-5. Those would be reconfiguring to a K-4 alignment, in alignment with the rest of the district under elementary. We have intermediate number 5, a reconfiguration. I want to go back to what Dr. Z mentioned at the very end of our meeting last week, where she mentioned that the district is still exploring options. And so once we make that decision of where the campus will be, what exactly that looks like, that would be impacted with 26, 27. I do want to make a general acknowledgement that all of the work that we've done can really function independently of anything that's happening here out in the Creekside area. There are only really two areas where that is impacting our work. In the intermediate plan, there is a little northern section and a southern cutoff, a little slither on each right off of the Creekside zone at Creekside Park Junior High that we were taking from Tomball Intermediate and Tomball Junior High. If that, depending on the direction we go, that would be the only area that would be impacted by all of the work that we've done. And so we really have functioned. We haven't had a lot of conversation about the Creekside area. I recognize there are folks, even today, signing up for the board meeting to talk about the Creekside rezone. And so I just want to let folks know that all of the work that we've done really can happen independently and be phased in without any changes to the Creekside area really impacting the work that we've done. So our commitment as it relates to this work, as we've done, we're asking for board approval on the elementary plan January 8th with an endorsement, an affirmation of all of the other plans that we've created, because we've heard from our community. We want to know where my child is going to go to high school, or this may impact future purchasing of a home in a new zone. We want to know where that's going to be. And so in an effort to be transparent with our community, we're putting all of these plans out, and we are asking the board to endorse the intermediate plan, the junior high plan, the high school plan, fully recognizing these are going to be phased in. And so every year before the board fully approves that zone, internally we'll do I'm going to call it an audit, but we will make sure that that plan still holds true. Nothing drastically has changed that we didn't account for, and that plan still works. And so at that point then, given that this committee has already done the legwork to vet that junior high and intermediate high school plan, then we'll bring that forward for board approval. At that time, that's why I have that little second star over here, if there are changes, there's even some concern, we talked about it I think at this table last time, about the Tiburon neighborhood going back to Creekview at Timber Creek. There's some desire for Tiburon to stay at Timber Creek. There's also some desire from the folks in Fairway Farms and along Huffsmith that would also desire to stay at Creekview. And really, if you look at a numbers perspective, it could be a fairly clean swap, Tiburon for Fairway Farms and Huffsmith neighborhoods. And so if we decide down the line, based on more community feedback, if this is something truly that is desired by the community, and maybe not just one or two individuals who like it where they are. And we knew that once you get there, you'll love it. And so we know also when you get to your new campus, you'll love it. But recognizing that if there is a change, we could swap the areas and let them stay where they are in essence right now. And so just want to acknowledge that we can do that and that we will consider that. And that right now, all of the work that we're doing is essentially like agnostic to anything that's happening out in Creekside. And so I want this committee to feel comfortable about the work that you're doing. Anything that's happening out in the northeast portion of the district can happen independently. And once that is solidified 100%, we will move forward with those plans, also acknowledging that we can keep them as is. And so I know I kind of said a lot in a short amount of time, and I want to make sure as the group passes out your individual plans, you'll see Plan 4 revised, individual map by level, along with the enrollment forecast for each level. And so as those are coming around, before those come around, any final questions before I turn it over to Dr. Schindewolf for your group work? All right. Well, I do thank you for your hard work in this committee, a lot of your feedback, a lot of the work that you put into your group work. Your Google document from last week has really helped shape my work with the team, and so I do want to thank you for your diligence in working through these maps. And so thank you so much. I'm turning it over to Dr. Schindewolf.
Okay, so thank you to the staff coming around and passing out your individual packets for Plan 4 Revised, which basically will show you everything that Dr. Gutierrez just reviewed. We are going to ask that you review that in your group, that you discuss that in your group, and that you use that QR code to get into the Google Doc, and that you provide feedback. And so the things that you're going to be asked to provide feedback are, based on the rationale and the changes made, basically open-ended, what feedback do you have for this Plan 4 Revised? Also, based on the changes and the community preference for Plan 4, do you feel comfortable endorsing this plan series as a final recommendation in our final committee meeting? If yes, explain your thoughts behind that. If no, explain what your thoughts are behind that. Indicate any recommendations that you have that you would like us to review before we make that final recommendation to the school board in January. Remember that we value you as a committee, as a set of advisors to the administration. So if you have feedback, we definitely want you to include that in your Google Doc so that we will be able to review that. And then also in that Google Doc, just provide your thoughts on delaying the junior high movement as he talked about. You can use that QR code. And then we're going to ask for each table to select a primary reporter to share the group's thoughts and feedback. And of course, anybody in the room can speak. It's not going to be limited to one, but just select that primary reporter from each table. So can you tell me the time? 2:18. So we're going to monitor you and how your discussion's going and how the feedback is coming in. We are thinking that this will go 20 to 30 minutes of group work and discussion and providing feedback. If you have questions, we'll be walking around and available to answer any of those questions. Okay, so we're at a little over 20 minutes. So start finalizing your conversations, getting your feedback into the Google Doc, and choose your speaker. And then we'll come back in about 9 minutes. Okay, feel free to continue to put feedback into the Google Doc if you need to wrap that up. For the sake of time, we are going to start listening to some of your feedback by table. So we are going to ask that you just give us your group response, some thoughts based on these questions and what you put in the Google Doc as a group. And so we can start with Group 1.
Okay, so thanks for the opportunity again to talk in front of you. So the group here wants to thank a lot the energy and the time spent. So thanks for all the feedbacks and everything. So the key input that we have is about the undercapacity of the high school compared to the overcapacity, or at least the reach of the limit for Memorial High School. Do we have a solution? No. No, we don't. We tried, but we don't. Well, we don't. And similar discussion for the intermediate. So we understand the reasoning behind a bit of a bet on the development of the West area. So it's better that part than the opposite. But that's the only, let's say, question mark that we have. Is a roadblock? No, it's not. So we approved the Plan 4. Then we don't have many thoughts on the delaying of the junior high school. So no feedback from our part. And I take personally another thank you to keep the door open for the Creekside area and all the discussions that we had. So the border will not impact any decision where the intermediate will be built. So thanks for that and acknowledging it. Did I miss anything? No, it's good. Okay.
Thank you.
Hello. So I'm just going to read our notes that we took. We said that Tomball West High School will have some varsity sports. Okay, we did ask Dr. Z for clarification on this because we've heard from feedback, many people concerned about, if my freshman or sophomore is an excellent athlete, how are they going to be affected? She did say, yes, we will have some varsity sports at the West Campus. The district is going to be gathering feedback from families that were previously impacted by when Tomball High School and Tomball Memorial split and how that worked, which I love. I love that the district is seeking out those opinions and voices to figure out what worked, what didn't work, so they can move forward with the plan for all of our city sports. But that's just kind of, they're going to need some more feedback to really pave the way for how they're going to do that. So they're going to consider, we wrote down, consider proactive communication for families that will be impacted by the varsity sports at West High School. The committee felt like the communities at Hayden Lakes, Wildwood, Oakcrest that would want to stay with friends, even though the commute to West is further, should stay at their school that is within close proximity. This has been voiced as a priority in thinking about that future new families who would purchase into those areas would want an area that was close by for their school. The committee voiced that the junior high starting earlier could work for a number of families. Like was previously mentioned, why not just rip the Band-Aid off like right now? From a leadership perspective, however, they felt like the balance of campus's impact was important, but the students' well-being is a top priority. So is there a large number of students that are impacted by this? What does the community feel is best? Should we do it now or pause? So those were our comments.
Okay. Will you hand the mic to this table?
All right. Good afternoon. As far as the answering the questions on the first one, the group preferred the 4 revised to 4, specifically, I know at the elementary with the changes that were made for Rose Hill. And then there was a lot of discussion around the thoughts on delaying the junior high. We went back and forth on that quite a bit, just because the junior high, it's only 2 years, 7th and 8th grade. And so what did that look like? And so I think where we landed on, the group can remind me if I'm wrong, is that to go with the date that's planned, but is the question mark or the asterisk was, is it possible for those who just are adamant that they would like to finish their junior high experience where they are, if they provided their own transportation, could they stay and finish the junior high? So that was the question mark or the asterisk that we put in our Google Notes.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. We had a lot of similar discussions. I think ours was more centered around the elementary schools and Rose Hill coming over capacity pretty quick. Really 5 years goes like that. And so we were talking about a couple of things. One, what could we do to potentially carve out some areas that would create capacity in the plan, and also the impact currently of the dual language program and what numbers and how does that influence the numbers that we see on paper. Then we also talked about, for the intermediate school, Tomball West being pretty under capacity for quite a while, and I think that was the same sentiment about the high school a little bit that was shared. And so what could be done to maybe work on that? And we had a couple ideas on that because we have some students who are zoned, for example, to Oakcrest, who are going to end up going to Grand Lakes Junior High, that potentially could help out if they were at Tomball West Intermediate. So those was a couple of comments on that. And then on the junior high implementation, we really talked about how many students are impacted by that. And so we don't know how many that is and whether it's 20 or 200. And so, but definitely feeder pattern wise, getting those students into their junior high that they're going to be in is better for overall programming, probably for student development. And then I'm looking at my notes. What else did I forget, Jennifer?
Just that they share staff, the intermediate and junior high sometimes share staff, so doing it at the same time.
Yeah, so I think it's, when you get into those logistics of just shared staff and how does that work out, and especially for the junior highs, because they do have transient folks who go out to different campuses. Again, when you can get them into that same feeder earlier, it tends to work out better overall for the staff as well.
All right, good afternoon. We talked a lot about the same items, and so I'll skip over those. We were wondering how many students will be realized in the North Amira section, and do the numbers justify splitting the neighborhood? That was a question that we had. Grand Oaks has capacity to grow. We were wondering about pre-K and how the reset impacts our pre-K programs. Thank you, Dr. Flores, for talking to us about that. We also talked a little bit about the difference in enrollment with the junior highs. We noticed that along with the other committees, and then that small section of our that is going to our Tiger Junior High that will be zoned to be Wildcat High School students. We had some discussion around that. Overall, we just really appreciated all of the listening and feedback that was taken. The shift in regards to the junior high, the general sentiment was rip off the Band-Aid. However, we didn't have any 5th through 7th grade parents sitting at our table, so we were thinking about perhaps polling those parents who would be impacted.
Hi, so we talked a lot about the elementary level. Just overall feedback continues to be that it's a hard sell to send kids to a school that is far away when it's much closer to the ones in the neighborhood. I just did want to share that between our last meeting and this meeting, I personally went to the new campus from my neighborhood just to see what that was like. It took 18 minutes to get there. It's 15 minutes to get to Grand Oaks, and it took me 3 minutes to get to Wildwood. So it is definitely continues to be, in my opinion, and just hearing other people from the neighborhood, I think that that's going to continue to be a question that's going to be raised. So one question that I had in the group, we did ask this and we provided feedback on, was that same neighborhood that I'm talking about, we were originally at Wildwood, then we got rezoned to Grand Oaks, and now it looks like we're going to get rezoned to West. So that's 3 schools in 3 years. We did have the question on looking at the Grand Oaks numbers. Next year, it's about half capacity. So we do have children from our neighborhood. My daughter just happens to be one who's in 2nd grade going into 3rd could we consider grandfathering out those kids that have already switched to just finish where they're going and start more of our neighborhood at the kindergarten, first, second grade level to West? So that was one question that we had. Overall, it seems like the numbers made more sense, and so understood from that standpoint. I just think that the hang-up is just proximity and location and commuting and traffic. We were in, we did like the idea of going ahead and pulling off the Band-Aid and doing that for the junior high level, not only just to reduce confusion, but we felt like that would just go ahead and make people aware of where they're going to be, and they can go ahead and prepare for that. Did I miss anything? Okay.
Hello. Okay, so we discussed from the intermediate plan, based on feedback from the community in Canyon Gate subdivision, they would like to stay with the Oak Crest intermediate plan. And to offset those numbers, we suggest moving the Copper Bend Indian Trails area back to North Point Intermediate. Just as a suggestion, because the Oak Crest, the Canyon Gate families feel like it's important for them to stay with the Canyon Point Elementary school plan, so that way they're not separated from their friends for 2 years and then meet them back at Willowwood Junior High. We are in agreement about endorsing this plan, the revised Plan 4, if there are a few tweaks. And as a parent of a 7th grader in junior high, we are not pro moving schools at the moment. This based on their mentality at this time. It's a age where changes like this could mentally impact them, and they'd like to stay with their friends, and that is our feedback.
Hi, everyone. We generally really liked this plan, and we felt like the boundaries were pretty well aligned. We did have one comment on the junior high school. On the Wildwood at North Point goes to school with the Tigers at the elementary, intermediate, and junior high. And then this is the only neighborhood that switches to Tomball Memorial High School. I know a couple groups mentioned this, but we were curious if anyone has addressed it with the parents from that aspect, just understanding that these kids are going to have to leave their friend group in high school. So we were curious about that, to transition them earlier so that they would then have a better friend group in junior high going into high school. On the shift to when we should shift junior high, one of the thoughts that we had was about staffing and just making sure that we were able to, maintain the great teachers that we have here in Tomball ISD. So just want to make sure we take that into consideration. And I think overall we would endorse this plan. Okay, that completes all of the groups. Are there any other individual points of feedback that you would like to add? Is there something that you feel like wasn't shared? Okay, so we really appreciate you working as a group to provide that feedback, and I know that I saw many of you typing away in your Google Doc. I can assure you that we will review everything that was written and everything that was shared verbally as we move forward from this meeting. So I'm going to call up Dr. Z now.
Okay, so here we go. This does complete the district zone reset committee work. So again, thank you. Could you all give yourselves a big round of applause? Thank you. It's heavy lifting. It's a lot of work, and I understand it comes at a time where when you give yourself, you're all volunteers, and you give of yourself, and you have a heavy lift, that not everybody is happy with the decisions that are made. And sometimes that's difficult. And so thank you for bearing the brunt of some of that. I appreciate that. I know personally that's not always easy. But at the end of the day, when you put your head on the pillow and you know you're doing what's right for each and every child, then it's okay. Because I know ultimately we all want collectively what is best for each individual student here in our community, moving forward, not just today, but in the future. And so now, I just want to remind you that the district zone reset presentation will be at the January board meeting. That date is January the 8th. Our meetings begin at 5:30. You're always welcome, but you are in particular welcome to that meeting if you'd like. It's not a requirement at all, but if you'd like, would love to have you there as we discuss all of the work that you've done. As you know, our elected board is very engaged. They're very concerned. They always want to make sure that we meet the needs of the community, the wants of the community, and so our board has stayed a part of this process and stayed involved. And so none of this will be a surprise to them, but that is a night we share everything with them. So again, if you would like to, if you have a free evening, you are always welcome. Staff, well, we will see you there. We will see you tonight as well. Thank you again. Any other final questions, comments, or concerns before we let you go? I hope you all enjoy some time off with your families coming soon, as we're able to enjoy a little bit of time for the holidays. Stay safe, and if I don't see you before, I will see you in 2024. Thanks.